All right, let's talk about research, but not in the way you might think. We're going to peel back the layers on something that seems simple on the surface, but is actually, well, it's packed with hidden complexity. So, you ever pick up a research paper, you see all the fancy charts and the big conclusion at the end, and you just kind of think to yourself, wait a minute, how on earth did they even get here? Like, what was the journey? How did they decide what questions to even ask in the first place? Well, the answer is way, way more interesting than you probably think. Because you know what? It's so much more than just gathering up a bunch of data and sticking it on a chart. In fact, it's a journey that starts with the researcher's deepest beliefs. Yeah, you heard that right. Every single study, I don't care if it's about business or psychology, it doesn't start with a question. It starts with how the researcher sees the world. And to really get our heads around that, we're going to need a map. And that map, our guide for this whole journey, is something called the research onion. It's a really clever model that shows us exactly how every little decision in a study, from the nitty-gritty methods to the final data, is all shaped by these big outer layers of belief. So just think about it like this. Any study you read is basically the very center of an onion. That's the part we all see, right? The data, the analysis. But to really get it, to understand why they did what they did, we can't start in the middle. We've got to start on the outside and peel our way in, layer by layer.
Okay, so let's start peeling. Layer number one, the absolute outermost layer, is the research philosophy. This is the big one. It's all about the researcher's core assumptions, basically the stuff they believe deep down is true about the world and what even counts as knowledge.
And the first piece of that philosophy is something called ontology. I know it sounds super academic, but it boils down to one simple, massive question. What is reality? Like, is there just one single objective truth out there for us to find? Or could there be lots of different realities, all shaped by our own culture and experiences? To show you what I mean, let me ask you something really simple. How many fingers do you have? Seriously, look at your hands right now. It sounds like a trick question, but I promise it gets right to the heart of this whole ontology thing. So, what's the answer? Okay, now this is where it gets wild, because believe it or not, the answer completely depends on where you live. In the UK, the answer is 8 fingers and 2 thumbs. But in Greece, they'd say you have 10 fingers. And get this, in Russia, the word for finger can actually include your toes, so you could have 20. It's a perfect example of how something we think of as a hard, solid fact can be totally constructed by our society and language. So the next part of this philosophy layer is epistemology. Again, big word, simple idea. This is just about what a researcher trusts as real, valid knowledge. Are they all about the hard numbers, the stats, the stuff you can measure? Or do they think the real truth, the real understanding, comes from listening to people's personal stories and experiences? And the last piece of the puzzle is axiology. This one's all about values and ethics. It asks a really important question. Can a researcher ever be a totally neutral, detached observer, like a fly on the wall? Or are their own personal values and beliefs always going to be part of the mix? And maybe, just maybe, is that actually a good thing? Okay, so how does all this philosophy stuff actually come together? Well, here's a brilliant way to think about it. You can imagine 3 different characters. First, you've got the positivist, who's like a classic scientist. They believe there's one single reality out there, and their job is to measure it. Then you have the interpretivist, who's more like an artist. They see a world of multiple realities, all built by people, and they want to understand those stories. And finally, there's the pragmatist. Think of them as an architect. They're not so worried about the big philosophical questions. They just want to use whatever tool works to solve a real-world problem. All right, we've peeled back that first big layer. Now for the next one, the approach to theory. And as you can probably guess, the philosophy a researcher chooses, whether they're a scientist, an artist, or an architect, is going to totally shape how they deal with theories. Basically, there are 2 main roads you can go down. There's the deductive approach. That's all about testing a theory. Our scientist starts with an idea, a hypothesis, and then goes out to collect data to see if they're right. Then you have the inductive approach, which is about building a theory. Our artist starts with nothing but a blank canvas, gathers a bunch of stories and observations, and then looks for patterns to create a brand new theory from the ground up. And now we get to peel even deeper, right to the layer of research methods. This is where all that abstract philosophy stuff we've been talking about gets real. It's where the big ideas turn into actual concrete tools for getting the job done. So a classic method for our scientist is the experiment, right? You've probably heard of this. You get 2 groups. One, the experimental group, gets some new treatment, let's say a new way of teaching. The other group, the control group, just gets the old way, or maybe nothing new at all. Then you just measure the results and see what happened. Seems pretty straightforward, yeah? But this is exactly where that axiology layer, the one about ethics and values, can get really, really tricky. I mean, think about it. You're asking, why do some people have a better treatment than another group? Is it really fair to give one group something you think is better while deliberately holding it back from the other? And what if you're wrong? What if the new thing is actually worse? These aren't just thought experiments. These are the real ethical dilemmas researchers wrestle with all the time.
Okay, let's switch gears to another classic research puzzle. Here's a fun fact for you, and it's absolutely true. The data shows clear as day that when ice cream sales go up, so does the number of people who drown.
So, does this mean buying a scoop of vanilla bean is a one-way ticket to a watery grave? Should we ban ice cream to save lives? Of course not. That's ridiculous. But it's a fantastic example of why you have to look deeper than just the numbers on a page. Nope. The real culprit here is what we call a confounding variable, a hidden factor: hot weather. Think about it. When it's hot, more people buy ice cream, right? And more people go swimming. And tragically, when more people swim, there's a higher chance of drowning. This brings us to maybe the most important lesson in all of research. So remember this one. Correlation does not equal causation. Just because two things happen at the same time, it doesn't mean one caused the other. So after all this, why does any of it matter? Why bother peeling this whole onion? Well, here's the punchline. For a study to actually be good, to be valid, all of these layers have to fit together. They have to be consistent. Your philosophy has to match your approach, which has to match your methods. If they don't, if those layers start to clash, the entire project can just fall apart.
Let me show you a perfect example. Check out this abstract. This is from a real study. It kicks off by saying its goal is an in-depth exploration to understand people's interpretations. Okay, so right away, that sounds like our artist, the interpretivist, right? They want to get deep into personal meaning. But then, just look at the methods they use to do it.
And here's the problem, plain as day. The language at the start is all artist, all interpretivist, but the method they chose, 200 questionnaires analyzed with statistics to test relationships, that is pure scientist stuff. That's positivism. The philosophy and the methods are in a total mismatch. It's like the layers of the onion are at war with each other, and it makes the whole design of the study completely flawed.
So the next time you read a study, I want you to try something. Don't just skip to the end to see the conclusion. Instead, try to be a detective. Ask yourself, what are the hidden layers here? What did this researcher believe about reality and knowledge and their own values that set this entire thing in motion? Start peeling back that onion and see what you find.